Hi, how are you? I'm Charles, and I'm going to show you how to make a granny square. I don't know if this video series will be for you or not, but I'm going to cover all sorts of variations of the granny square, from basic to not necessarily advanced, but a little bit of changes that some people introduce to it. In a granny square, there are 8 elements that over time have changed, or some crocheters have changed them, others have stayed a more traditional way. So anyway, in this video today I'm just going to talk about the first 3, but the 8 different elements are the center hole space, the crochet stitch groups, the groups of 3 stitches, the corners, and then the spacing between the groups as opposed to the space at the corners, the beginnings of the rounds, the ends of the rounds, how to add new colors, and flipping the fabric from front side to back side, or leaving it all on the front side. Anyway, so all those 8 different things can make or break a successful granny square. So today we're just going to start with the first 3. So I'm going to show you several different ways to make the center, or the starting point, of the granny square first. Okay, I'm just using a worsted weight or Aran weight or 10-ply weight yarn. Depending what region you're from, you'll have a different name for the same thing. And I'm using a 5.5 millimeter hook. All right, the first thing is to make a basic slip knot. Okay, to make a slip knot, some people use the hook, some people use their hands. I'm just going to use my fingers to do it for now. Okay, the first thing to do is to cross the loop over. So here's my tail end of the yarn, and here's my working end of the yarn. So the working end is the one that goes to the ball of yarn. So I'm going to cross that on top of the tail. I'm going to pinch this little X, and then I'm going to take a strand of the working yarn and push it up through that loop that I made. And then I'm going to pull on the tail and tighten it. Okay, most slip knots are made so that the tail is the strand that you tighten. So if I hold this strand here and pull on the tail, all I do is tighten up this knot. The slip part comes with the other end, so the working yarn that goes to the ball, that one slips back and forth. You can make the knot bigger or smaller, or if you're not careful, you can pull it all the way out. All right, so the standard slip knot is to have the yarn that goes to the ball be the one that slips, and the tail is the one that tightens. Okay, so I'm just going to put that on my hook, and then I'm going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Actually, I'm going to chain a few more. 4, 5. Okay, so it depends. Some crocheters started with 3 chains, some 4, some 5, some 6. It's going to be a matter of taste of how big you want that center hole to be. All right, then you're going to join the ring with a slip stitch in the first chain, which is over here. So some people just go under one strand like that, pull the yarn through, and pull the yarn through. Okay, that's fine. There's your ring, but you'll notice that this hole has opened up quite a bit. Working with yarn, it doesn't matter very much because the stitches are going to cover that up. Some people go through the front loop and the back strand as well, and then you yarn over and pull through everything. And there is your join. So this is a much firmer join here and there's no gap. All right, then we need to go up to the height of the first round of stitches. Okay, again, the traditional stitch used is a double crochet. And I'm using US terms throughout this video, just in case you were wondering. Okay, so to get up to the height of a row of double crochets, the standard is to chain 3. All right, so those 3 chains count as my first double crochet. So then I'm going to find that ring, right there my fingertip is pointing through it, and I'm going to make 2 double crochets in that spot. All right, so here is my first group of double crochet stitches. The first 3 chains count as, or substitute in as, a double crochet, and then 2 more double crochet stitches. Okay, basically in my first round, all I have is corners. So I'm going to chain 2 because that's my preferred corner chain space, is 2. Some of you might find people who chain 3, some of you might find people who chain 1. The reason for all the different number of chains in the corners is because of the thickness of the yarn. If you're working with a finer yarn and you only chain 1, you're going to have a pretty tight corner, so you'll chain 2. If you're working with a really, really chunky yarn, chaining 2 might not be enough and you need to chain 3. So when people come on to your Facebook group and tell you, oh, you have to chain 2 in the corners, or you have to chain 3 in the corners, there's no have to about it. It's basically what you like, and that's what you go with. And I'll tell you some tips about what makes the corners look really nice. Okay, so I just did 3 more double crochets and I chained 2. So now I'm going to make 3 more, again in that center ring. Okay, so now I have 3 groups of double crochets. I'm going to chain 2, put 3 more in. Okay, so this is just a tip for what I do. See this tail that I have here? I don't really want to weave it in at the end. So what I'm going to do is go back a little ways here. After I have 3 double crochet groups done, I'm going to hold this tail over here. So basically, if you flip it over, I'm kind of lining it up with the edge of that ring. And I'm going to work my 3 double crochets over in the ring, and also I'm going to insert my hook under that tail each time. Again, I flip it over, you can see the tail is there. And I've trapped it, which means later I'll just be able to cut that and not worry about the tail. And now I have 1 more, the 4th group of 3 double crochets. And then I've gotten to the beginning. So if we study this a little bit, you can see here that I have the center ring and I have 3 corner spaces. Each one of these in my case is made with a chain 2 space. Now I get to the 4th corner and I have to join somewhere in here. So these 3 chains stand for a double crochet. So I'm going to want to go into that top chain of those 3. So I'm going to chain 2 and I'm going to insert my hook. So some people just stab into that 3rd chain, and when they do, they manage to pick up 2 strands of yarn that kind of cross over and form an X. And then you finish the slip stitch by yarning over and pulling through everything. Okay, that is the most secure join when you pierce that 3rd chain and go under 2 strands. Granny squares start to look messy when you just go under 1 strand, and I'll show you what that looks like. So I'm just going to go 1, 2, there's my 3rd chain. I'm just going to go under 1 strand and join. Okay, so what that does, there's my corner, but it pulls open this gap right here. You might be lucky and it might be filled with fuzz from a yarn if the yarn is fuzzy and bouncy, but if, let's say, it's cotton, that hole is not going to fill up with any fuzz and it's going to be very visible. It also just makes the join very stretchy and it can throw your corner off kilter. So another tactic is to go under the front loop of that chain and under the back loop of that chain right there. It's hard to do with a hook though sometimes. I'm going under the front loop, then under the back loop. Then I'm going to yarn over and pull through everything. But see, it's snagging, so you have to do a little bit of twisting and maneuvering around. Okay, and that creates a pretty neat join. Now, I'm sure some of you are seeing this gap here. This gap is formed when you use a chain 3 start. And even though the chain 3 start is traditional and has been used for granny squares for decades, people just kind of put up with that little gap between the chain 3. Often, when you add the corner stitches on round 2, that little gap gets pushed closed by some of the other stitches, if you're lucky. All right, so there's the first round of a granny square. So that's the first method that I taught you by chaining 5 and joining in the first stitch. So you can see the hole is pretty big. Also, there's no way of closing that hole. If I pull on the tail, it doesn't do anything. So that's why some people chain 4 or chain 3 to make that hole smaller if they don't want a really big one. So next I'm going to show you the magic loop, or the magic ring, or the magic circle, or the adjustable ring. It has lots of different names. Okay, in this case, I'm going to hold the tail across my left hand because I'm right hand dominant. I'm going to pinch it with my thumb and ring finger right there. Then I'm going to bring the yarn over my top 2 fingers, the index and the middle, and cross it over my over that strand of yarn there, and then it's kind of going to go still over the middle finger and the index finger. Then what I do is wrap it under and pinch it with my pinky, between my pinky and my ring finger. Okay, and then I take the hook and I go under that X, bring my hand over, grab the yarn that is being held by my ring and pinky finger, and I pull that through the loop. And before I let go of anything, I chain 1. And there I've secured the magic ring, or the adjustable ring. Okay, so this is what it looks like after I've secured it. Okay, the working yarn goes off to the ball. I have the ring, I have 1 strand on the hook, and then I have the tail kind of going in and out of that magic ring. Okay, so then to work into that, I want to work around 2 strands, so I'm going to always hold the tail so that I have 2 strands here in this ring. Okay, I need to chain 2 more. Remember, I did that 1 chain to secure it. Now I have 3 chains, and I'm going to work 2 double crochets into that big loopy magic ring. So this is where beginners feel very awkward, because that magic ring might be huge. This slippery ring might be really, really big and feel uncomfortable to work in. So the trick to deal with that, okay, is that you want to concentrate on the double-stranded segment that you're going to be working under. So you're going to want to pinch that section and leave as little space between where you're pinching and the knot. I'm even going to pinch right up so that you can barely see any space, maybe 3 or 4 millimeters or 1/4 inch. Okay, I'm going to yarn over. I'm going to go under those 2 strands, yarn over and pick up yarn and bring it across. At this point, I need to put my index finger on the hook to break everything, and then I need to grab all these strands and pinch the 3 of them together, and then finish my double crochet. That keeps this magic ring from growing and growing and growing. Okay, I'm going to pinch the 2 strands close to the base of my last double crochet, yarn over, go under both strands, take a loop and pull it up. Put my index finger on here to break. I even use my right pinky here to pinch things down a little bit, then pinch all 3 strands, then finish my double crochet. Okay, when I slow it down, it's actually making it feel a little awkward, but I can do it quite fast and you'll get used to doing it as well. All right, there's my first group of 3. I'm going to chain 2 and work another group of 3 double crochets under that strand. And you'll notice that each time I pinch, I go under both strands, I break, I readjust, hold everything with my left hand, my middle finger and my thumb. If you crochet like this, feeding the yarn off your middle finger, you're going to have to pinch with your index finger like that. Okay, it's chain 2. Okay, and then go under that strand, yarn over, bring up a loop. Okay, I'm not really adept at using my middle finger as a yarn feeder, so I'm going to have to change back. Now, some of you, when you crochet, you tend to let go of this piece of work with your yarn feeding hand, and you do this wrapping action. In that case, you have to do some new tricks. So you do have to pinch everything here and create this hole to go into by pinching between these 2. So then you're going to wrap using these 2 fingers to wrap, go in the hole, wrap, oh, the other way, wrap, pull up, wrap, go through 2, wrap, and go through 2. Because this pinching of this hole is essential. So when you're used to letting go and using this hand to wrap, you don't have any way to hold the insertion point, which for some people causes a lot of loose stitches and a lot of unevenness. But not everybody. It depends how practiced you get at it. Okay, then I'm going back to there. So now I'm just going to tighten up my magic ring a little bit by pulling on the tail, just to close that loop up a little bit. Okay, you can see that the tail has gradually twisted around several times, so you can undo that and just pull the tail through the middle. like that. Okay, so now I have 2 more. And I'm going to do, sorry, I have 2 more chains, but 1 more group of 3 double crochets. So I'm just going to work those 3 double crochets into the same spot. Chain 2, and I'm going to join by going into the heart of this chain 3 over here, getting 2 strands, slip, stitch. All right, so there is my first round. The beauty of the magic ring now is that I can pull on this and snug this right up. And now I have no center hole and just the 4 corners. Later on in the series, I'll show you how to weave in the end of a magic ring so that it doesn't come apart. All right, so then there's one other way I'd like to show you to make that center ring. What we're going to do now is we're going to use a reverse slip knot to start. A reverse slip knot basically means that instead of the yarn that goes to the ball being the slippery yarn, the tail is going to be the slippery yarn. So we have to reverse things around. Okay, so here's my working yarn and here's my tail. I'm going to bring the tail across the working yarn like that. Okay, then I'm going to bring a strand of the tail up through that loop and tighten it with the working yarn. So now the working yarn, this one that goes to the ball, this is the one that doesn't slide. And the tail is the one that does slide. And I don't want to pull it all the way out because then I have to redo it. So this is a reverse slip knot. Okay, so I'm going to put it on the hook, and it's weird because now it's the tail that you have to pull on to tighten things. But you have to remember to chain with the working yarn. So I'm going to pinch that knot there so that my tail doesn't come out. If I don't pinch it very easily, it can just get pulled out like that. Okay, so I'm going to chain 4. And now I'm going to work 2 double crochets into the 4th chain from the hook. So yarn over. When I go into this 4th chain, I want to make sure I grab 2 strands of yarn, not just 1. Yarn over and pull under those 2 strands. And make my first double crochet. Then I'm going to yarn over and make another one in that same spot. And this is going to feel tight and counterintuitive, but it does work. So I'm going to chain 2 and put 3 more double crochets all into the same spot. And chain 2 for the next corner. And you'll see that the tail is kind of sticking out from underneath those stitches. That's okay. Still, I'm going to do 3 more double crochets, and when I do, I'm kind of going to go under the tail when I do that, just like I was doing with the magic ring, or kind of hiding the tail. You want to just make sure you don't pull the tail up through that center. So the tail from the reverse slip knot is just kind of waiting there, it's trying to keep it out of the way. And then I'm going to chain 2 and join in top of that 3rd chain. Just loosen it so I can take the hook out. Okay, so now I can pull on this tail, same as a magic ring, and it seals up the hole, not quite as tight as a magic ring does. There's still a tiny little orifice there where you can maybe poke things through. If the yarn is acrylic and won't rip properly easily, you can tug on it really, really firmly and actually seal things up. This type of knot is using the reverse slip knot, this type of center is much less likely to come apart than when you are using magic loop or magic ring. All right, so those are the three elements that I wanted to talk about: the center ring and the corners. Oh, the third one basically is what stitches to use. I used double crochet groups all the time. Some people do use treble crochet stitches or extended double crochet stitches, depending on what they were taught traditionally. But yes, the standard still is a double crochet. In UK terms, that is a treble stitch. All right, so those are the elements, the first three elements that I wanted to share with you. There's 5 more. I am going to create a series of videos for the other 5 that will be on my YouTube channel. So you can go to YouTube, click on the search window, and search for swatch on, swatch off. Swatch is spelled S-W-A-T-C-H. So it's swatch on, swatch off. And would you, once you're there, would you subscribe and would you click on the little bell icon to receive notifications? And then that way you will be able to get notifications when the next in the series on the Granny Square is available. Thanks a lot. Bye.